Welcome back to Fantasy Hockey TimBits. Today we're going to talk about defensemen and goaltenders. Now this doesn't include stats from the day of shooting, Wednesday, December 15th. There are only 3 games anyways. The Blackhawks beat the Capitals. Fleury and Samsonov were in net. The Rangers beat Arizona. Kincaid and Wedgwood were attending goal. And the Ducks beat the Kraken, which was Stolaraz and Grubauer / Drieger. More on that later in net. Now, before I move on, I just wanted to say that 70% of the people who watch these videos are not subscribers. If that happens to be you, please hit that subscribe button. I'd love to hit that 1,000 mark sometime in the next 10 years. Now, let's start with defensemen first, shall we? Beginning in Carolina, keep an eye on Bret Pesci, who's back from COVID protocol. Now he's less than 7% owned. Second pairing, second power play. Has 2 points in his last 2 games played. He shoots and blocks a fair deal. So think about him. We move over to Chicago now with Jake Mccabe, who's less than 2% owned. Third pairing, first penalty kill. Now, in his last 3 games, he's got 1 goal and 3 points, though. And he plays anywhere from just under 19 to just over 27 minutes a night. Let's go to the Columbus Blue Jackets and Jake Bean, who's less than 2% owned. First pairing, second power play. In his last 4 games, he's got 1 goal, 3 points. Shoots a fair deal, blocks shots, and plays anywhere from just under 20 to over 27 minutes per matchup. Now, in Colorado, Eric Johnson, who's less than 15% owned. Second pairing, second power play. He also plays the penalty kill. Now, he's got 4 points in his last 5 games. And when it comes to peripherals, he shoots, he hits, he blocks shots as well. And he's a plus 15, second only to Taves, who I think is out of the lineup at the moment. Moving on to the Minnesota Wild and Jonas Brodine, who seems to be in every one of these videos. He's less than 30% owned right now. Second pairing, first power play for the last, I want to say, 12 games or so. However, he's coming back from a 2-game recovery period. He was injured, but he's got 5 points in his last 5 games. He shoots, he blocks shots as well, and he plays anywhere from over 20 to over 28 minutes per matchup. Now, over to the island in New York. Noah Dobson. Stop the video. Go grab him right away. Less than 13% owned. Second pairing, first power play. The Islanders are starting to heat up as well. In his last 6 games, 3 goals, 5 points. Plays anywhere from just under 20 to over 26 minutes per night. He shoots a ton. He hits and he blocks shots as well. Next, let's go over to Seattle and talk about a good depth piece for you who puts up peripherals and somewhat points. That's Adam Larson, less than 22% owned, second pairing, first penalty kill. In his last 7 games, he's got 3 points. He shoots, he hits, he blocks shots. He also puts up somewhat decent penalty minutes, and he plays anywhere from just under 19 minutes and up per night. Let's go to San Jose now and talk about Jacob Middleton. Who? Yeah, well, strictly a peripheral guy, really. Less than 1% owned. Second pairing, plays with Carlson. Second penalty kill unit. In 23 games this year, he only has 4 points. But he shoots, he hits, he blocks shots, and he puts up penalty minutes. Dependable guy at the bottom of your lineup if you're in a deep league there. Then his buddy, Mario Ferraro. Same deal, peripheral guy. But he's almost 60% owned. Yeah, first pairing, plays with Burns, first penalty kill. Now, in 29 games this season, he puts up more points than Middleton. He's got 10. He hits and blocks a ton, which is why he's been quite steady for the most part. Now, Vegas, Zach Whitecloud. Keep an eye on him. A bit of a peripheral guy, but less than 15% owned. Second pairing, second penalty kill. In the last 12 games, he's got 5 goals. No apples. And he shoots and hits a fair amount. He also blocks shots fairly averagely. And he's a +8. The only problem with him is he's a bit up and down there. Next, his teammate Nick Hague. Again, another guy maybe you at least want to put on your watch list. Less than 7% owned. First pairing, first penalty kill in his last 15 games. He's got 6 points, but he shoots a lot. He hits a bit as well and blocks shots. He plays with Pietrangelo, and he's got the most penalty minutes amongst defensemen at the very least as well. He's a plus 10, by the way. Let's move over to Winnipeg. I've got a few players from here to talk about, starting with Nate Schmidt. Stop the video, grab him right away. Great depth piece, less than 30% owned. First pairing, second power play. In his last 5 games, he's got 4 points. He shoots a fair deal and blocks, I think, the most shots on the club. His teammate, Brendan Dillon, strictly a depth peripheral guy, but he's less than 9% owned. Second pairing, second penalty kill. He has 2 points in his last 6 games. He's a plus 9, by the way. He shoots, hits a ton, blocks shots, and has the most penalty minutes amongst defensemen for that club. Then there's Logan Stanley, another peripheral guy, less than 1% owned, third pairing, first penalty kill, has 3 points in his last 8 games. He shoots, hits, he blocks shots, and he puts up penalty minutes there. And lastly, let's talk about the Washington Capitals defenseman Martin Fevery. Another peripheral depth guy, less than 4% owned. First pairing alongside John Carlson. First penalty K unit, 6 points in 28 games so far this season. But he's a plus 9, shoots a fair amount, hits the most on the team, I want to say, or at least amongst defensemen, and blocks shots as well. Let's move over to the goaltending. Starting with Vegas and Laurent Brossoit. Keep an eye on him. Less than 3% owned. Owns a .911 save percentage. He's won 4 of his last 5 games, and he's played 5 of the last 15 that club has played. Next, let's go to Toronto and talk about Peter Marazzick. Another guy you should at least put on your watch list. He's come off the IR. He's played 1 game so far. Looked decent. His overall save percentage isn't good. It's .880, but he's won 2 of his last 3. And you would think Toronto would be wanting to give Campbell a little bit of a break here because he's been playing most of the games. Just keep a close eye on him. Moving on. Out of left field, let's go to St. Louis and talk about, is it Charlie Lindgren, who's less than 4% owned, but has 4 wins in his last 3 starts. Did I say he's got a .956 save percentage? This is because both Binnington and Husso are out at the moment, and who knows when he's going to go back to the AHL, but he's looked great. Now we're talking about a guy who's on this list almost every week in James Reimer. He's under 5% owned. San Jose Sharks, by the way, obviously. He's got a .936 save percentage, and he should be playing a bulk of the games moving forward, as Adin Hill is just so up and down, really. Great game, bad game. And not to mention, Reimer's won 9 of his last 15 games. Next, something interesting with the Seattle Kraken. Because Grubauer got injured tonight, Driedger came in to play the last little bit of the game. And Driedger's less than 10% owned. Of course, he's got an awful .898 save percentage, but he's won his last 3 games that he's played, and he's only allowed 6 goals during that time. And Grubauer really has been pretty awful recently, so I could see them slowly starting to start Driedger more and more over the next little bit, especially if Grubauer's hurt. Now, the Pittsburgh Penguins, Casey DeSmith. He's been rebounding lately as well, less than 2% owned. The backup, of course, he's got a .905 save percentage overall, but he's won his last 2 games versus Anaheim and Seattle, and has only allowed 1 goal in those 2 matchups. Next up, the Ottawa Senators and Anton Forsberg. Stop the video. I know I'm not crazy. Grab him right away. Now, overall, he's got a .908 save percentage. He's less than 2% owned, by the way. But he's won 5 in a row now, including 1 shutout, and his average is about 2 goals per game that he's let in. Now, he's also started 5 of the last 6 games for Ottawa as well, as Gustafsson is all over the place. And of course, Murray went through waivers and everything, as you know, a little while back. And with a lot of teams going through some COVID issues, especially, clubs like Calgary and Boston, Carolina, just for starters, and who knows, that's going to change day by day. Whenever they're playing a team, in the bottom half of the league or a COVID-impacted club, he'd be great behind the wheel. Next, we go over to New York. Let's talk about Georgiev. Now, just put him on your watch list. He's sporting a really bad .898 save percentage, but he's less than 13% owned, by the way. He has won 3 of his last 5 games. Now, Shesterkin is on the IR, and I'm not quite sure when he'll be back, but Georgiev has got great numbers all of a sudden in 4 of his last 5 starts. Moving over to Nashville, let's talk about Big Save Dave. Riddich, who's less than 8% owned. He's got an .880 save percentage. Now, again, just keep an eye on him. His save percentage has been bad, but he's won the last 2 games on December 9th and 10th there versus Detroit and the New York Islanders. He's only faced 32 shots in those 2 games as well. So if Nashville is playing a team in the bottom half of the league or a COVID-stricken club, think about it if you've got nowhere else to go. Moving over to Minnesota and Kako Kakanin. Put him on your watch list. He only has a .905 save percentage. He's less than 4% owned, but he's won 2 of his last 3 games with at least a .935 save percentage and up. Of course, those games were against Arizona, New Jersey, and LA, so do what you gotta do. Stop the video, grab Jonathan Quick from the LA Kings. Now, he's under 27% owned. He's got a .931 save percentage. He's won 3 of his last 4, all against good teams as well. And that one loss was against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Not to mention, he's playing the majority of the games now and probably moving forward because Cal Petersen is not having a good year at all. Now let's go over to Detroit and talk about Nadelgevic, who's an interesting character. Put him on your watch list. He has a .918 save percentage. He's lost 3 of his last 4, but he has won 5 of his last 8 games. But his last 2 games, if you're still following me, he looked really good with a very high save percentage. So again, just play it by matchup. He's less than 53% owned, if I didn't say that already. Now let's talk about the Colorado Avalanche. Pavel Francoise. Remember him? He hasn't played a game this year. He's back off the IR. Had a 2-game stint in the AHL. Keep an eye on him. Kemper has been playing well recently. But at some point, they got to throw him in net, right? Now, next up, let's talk about the Buffalo Sabres and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. You may want to pick him up right away if you have some space, because he's only played 4 games so far this season, and he's lost 3 of them, but he's got a .939 save percentage. Is he going to stick around? I don't know. I don't think the Sabres want him to be around for too much longer. Now, of course, Anderson and Tokarski are on the IR at the moment. Tokarski's with COVID. They picked up Subban, and he's recently been activated off the IR. Dell has been sent down to the AHL. It just goes round and round. And don't get nauseous, please. So, I don't know. I'd pick him up for the hell of it, maybe, especially if you've got some space. Lastly here, let's talk about the Ducks and Anthony Stolarz. Now, John Gibson got hurt a few games back versus Pittsburgh. No one seems to know yet how long he's going to be out. Stolarz is less than 8% owned and has got a .930 save percentage. He's won 5 of his last 5 starts as well. Probably pick him up right away. That's it. That's all. Thank you so much for joining me today. Consider supporting the channel through my crowdfunding webpage called Buy Me a Coffee webpage. What am I, like 80 years old? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, which will alert you when my next video comes out. Thanks again so much for joining me. Please, don't forget, be kind to each other out there in this gonzo world we're living in, and I'll see you soon.